And welcome to the podcast, Appetite for Distortion, episode 229. My name is Barando, and I got to give the date because, while this is a pre-recorded podcast, being from live radio, I like to make it feel as live as possible. So I always let you know when I'm recording it, and I may even release this today. We'll see. So it's November 2nd, 2020. So and I feel important to name the date. To give the date is because this may be the last episode as the world may end tomorrow. We're going to see, if I'm still here. If not, if our country is still here, or I should say the U.S. It's been nice knowing you. Thanks for hanging out for another edition of this Appetite for Distortion broadcast. And I have a cat already petting me, or I'm petting the cat rather. I posted these the other day. It's a nice little segue, Eric. And I should have asked you before we started recording. How do I correctly pronounce your last name?
Meunier.
Meunier. Where is that? What's the ethnicity of that?
So it's a French last name, actually. In French, it's pronounced Meunier.
Can I say it like that? Meunier?
Sure.
I like
but
that.
It's been Americanized to Meunier. But yeah, like 3 generations ago, it was Meunier. And that is a very common name in France and Canada. It is the French equivalent of Miller.
Okay.
A Meunier is someone who works in a mill.
Okay. I'm learning the side of you I didn't think I would learn.
Ancestry.
I love, and this is like it all in my way of just like a nice, beautiful segue with everything as one of my cats runs off finally and letting me do the podcast. I posted pictures the other day for National Cat Day, them all posed with either my brand new Appetite for Distortion podcast t-shirt on Redbubble or different GNR swag and things like that. So if you're watching on Zoom, you got a nice little cameo from my cat Pig, I would ask. But especially if you're watching on Zoom, you get to see my guest today, Eric Meunier. I'm sorry. I guess I love it.
That's me.
And if you're looking at Eric, you know who he is right away because right behind him is the Guns N' Roses Not In This Lifetime Pinball machine. And I said this before even you guys, or I should say you guys, I've been talking to Ken over there and yourself. I said on social media, this is a really cool game. And I always said, I've been saying this for years, if I had the means, that's another story, because I'm in radio. I'm not Joe Rogan. I'm not, Howard.
Mm-hmm.
I want to get several arcade games. Now, Not In This Lifetime Pinball is on the list, but I want WrestleFest. I want to get the Simpsons game, Turtles in Time. That's like something that's I think my goal in life so you're one of the co-designers, and that's why I reached out to you guys. I'm like, I got to find out more about this game because it seems so intricate, and just putting it together, it seems like more than a regular pinball game. So I just wanted to, I thank you for your time. First of all, welcome. Before I continue on my tangent, so where are you? I guess let's start here. Where are you located currently?
We are in Chicago, Illinois, pinball capital of the world.
See. Do you say that, or is it really the pinball capital?
It's really the pinball capital of the world. I mean, out of all the pinball machines that have ever been made in the world, 90% of them have come out of Chicago, Illinois.
That's amazing.
So,
and
in the heyday, like Bally and Williams and Gottlieb and Meunier and all of the big name pinball companies were within 5 miles of where I'm located right now.
Wow. See, this just goes to show you that the fate is just making me do segues into our conversation like I planned it.
Yeah.
In a couple weeks, actually, I think the end of the week of Thanksgiving, I'm making my first trip to Chicago.
Right.
I've never been before, but that's where my girlfriend's from. We're going to visit her family. So I normally would be more excited because it's something I like to go to bars because I'm in Queens right now, Queens, New York, especially around here where there's a lot of hipsters, I guess. There's a lot of cool bars that have video games and pinball machines. And that's where I think the last thing I went to before COVID was actually a Dave & Buster's, playing these games.
Yeah.
So as you're in Chicago, I see you before we sat down, you had your mask on. So you're around people, you're working.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
How has it been for you? So that's why I'm happy to see Jersey Jack Pinball, doing well despite all this.
Yeah, so 2020's been rough, I mean, for the entire world. But our company made some pretty big strides this year. One of the big things we did is in early March, we decided to move our entire factory, our manufacturing facility, from Lakewood, Illinois to Chicago. Engineering and design has always been here in Chicago. This is where the talent is that designs pinball machines, it does the programming, it does the artwork, does animations. This is where that talent pool has been for the last 80 years. And our manufacturing is now here with us so that I can go out on the line every day and look at my game going down the line and helping the factory workers, you know, tweak or adjust or make sure they do things exactly the way that it was designed to be done. So 2020 gave us the downtime that was needed due to COVID to transition and move our entire factory out here. And Guns N' Roses is the first game that's being mass produced out of our new factory.
Oh, wow. So there's a lot to unpack there. And I guess while we're still on this train of thought, because as you may be able to tell, I lose it quite easily. Is it because factories are so big? Because it would seem to make sense, like the factory would be next to the designer somewhere, unless you were so easy before maybe to communicate, you know, whether it's remoting into someone's computer or, you know, FaceTime and all that. How come it was in two different places before? Is that normal? Is that typical for pinball?
Generally not. I don't think it would. I can't think of another company that did it that way. But our founder lived in New Jersey, and he was working on pinball machines out there. He's been in the industry for 40 plus years. His name is Jack Pinball, and he started the company and created jobs out in Lakewood to manufacture and assemble these games. So that was in 2011 is when he started the company.
Okay, wow. Because it's just, so how far back do you go? How did you get into this line of work and designing pinball? That's a level I always thought that it's a level of talent, of knowledge that I can't even begin to comprehend. You know, the people, as simple as going back so many years to just Pac-Man and that level of it. And you can just go to video games in addition to just the arcade game. It's just like how intricate. I don't understand that. So how did you first get into this line of work?
So I was introduced to arcade games from birth, actually. My parents owned an arcade company in the Wisconsin Dells, the water park capital of the world, where we had over 100 different arcades, and I never had a babysitter. Wow. I was always with my parents, and since the age of 7, I've been working on games. I've been fixing games. I've been soldering boards and electronics and repairing that sort of stuff. And that kind of comes naturally to me. I always fix stuff, take it apart. You know, I built my first computer when I was 12 out of spare arcade game parts.
Wow.
Yeah, just from stuff we had laying around, and you know, I took some out of this game, some out of that game, and got a computer. That was pretty good.
Brilliant.
I decided that I never wanted to be part of the gaming industry ever again, because that's what'll happen if you work for your parents for 15 years. So I went to school and I got a degree in electrical engineering, and I was planning on going into robotic prosthesis. And I got my master's degree in robotics from University of Wisconsin-Madison. And then I was at a pinball show, which happened pre-COVID, all over the country, all over the world. Many times a year, you'd get thousands and thousands of people who would come to conventions to play pinball. You pay one fee, and games are all there on free play, and there's swag booths, and there's tournaments, and there's all this cool stuff that surrounds the pinball culture. And I was at one of those shows with my family, with my dad and my brother, and this guy, Jack Pinball, talked about how he is starting a new company and bringing pinball back and getting back into what made pinball great. Because there wasn't a lot of innovation happening at that time. The only company that was remaining wasn't putting out a lot of innovative products, and Jack wanted to change that. So he said he's starting this company, he's looking for good people, and I was in my final semester of my master's. I was finishing my thesis, and I just thought, I know this industry, I'll give him my resume. And I did, and I talked to him. He's like, you're extremely overqualified for any position that we have here. but if you want to come on board, we'll make it work. So I was brought in and brought in to be the electrical engineer for the company, the only one, no one else to mentor from or anything like that. So that's fun when you're 20, 22 years old. The entire company depends on you not screwing things up. Did the electronics for the first 3 games from Jersey Jack, which was The Wizard of Oz, The Hobbit, and then an original title called Dialed In, made by Pat Lawler, who's one of the most renowned game designers of pinball. He's got to did Addams Family and just a bunch of other just smash hit pinball machines. The 4th game that Jersey Jack did was my first game as lead designer, and that was Disney's Pirates of the Caribbean. And since then, I've been a game designer. And then my next game was what you see behind me here.
I'm in awe, honestly. I keep looking back at my side of the camera. My mouth is kind of like a gape, and just like, okay, wait a minute, that level of intelligence and I mean, I'm sure it's a double-edged sword because it seems like you're a kid surrounded by games that's living the life, but I understand it's very relatable to work for your parents, and I'm sure a lot of people can understand that, and it doesn't matter what it is that comes with its own set of stress. Just fascinating. So you said a word that I was like, what am I going to use for this guy? Overqualified. So it seems like you're overqualified. But then again, to make a Guns N' Roses pinball machine, but it's not. Again, it's not just. You're talking about the innovation. Where I've gone, I forget the name of the Queen's Bar around here that had, I think it was the Ghostbusters pinball, had the Addams Family pinball. They're fun, but they don't seem as interactive. And especially, and I was watching an interview with Slash. It's like you're at Not In This Lifetime concert when you're there.
Yeah.
Because it's actual music. So I guess to kind of start going into that, because I'm geeking out too much, we can start just, you have your own pinball podcast, and I'm sure we'll keep talking geek stuff as we go along. But how did this come about? Because it's hard for we GNR fans, like we like anything new and innovative, and when GNR does it, it's great. But it's few and far in between when they come out with something this huge.
Sure.
So who reached out to who? Who was the one that had the lightning bulb? And if I could preface it with, I know Slash is a huge pinball nut, that he has a lot in his house. And I'll say, and I forget the guy's name. Like Slash, has his own personal pinball guy. And you probably know. I'm sure you know who he is.
I do. Yeah.
And I reached out to him, and I think maybe he was weirded out. He's like, why does somebody want to interview me? I'm just a pinball guy. And I'm like, I'm not going to ask you.
His name's Pat Choi.
That's it. Yeah, Pat. I'm like, I'm not going to ask you blueprints about Slash's house. I just want to, like, I'm talking to you. So now was it Slash or was it Pat? Like, who's the one that was the catalyst?
So Jack Winery and Slash actually go back quite a few years. Jack was one of the first people to ever sell pinball machines online. He started a company back in the 90s called pinballsales.com. And through that company, he had many, many high-profile clients. One of those clients was Slash. And so they had a good relationship. He sold Slash a couple games, and when Slash came to play in New York or Jersey, Jack would go and meet him and hang out with him and, be able to talk pinball. Obviously, Slash is one of the biggest superstars in the world, and most people have a hard time, treating him like one of the guys, because he's Slash. But when it comes to pinball, it's like Slash is one of the guys. He just wants to play the game and hang out. So that's, I think, what helped him and Jack form such a great relationship. And Slash, in, I think, 2017, 2015, something like that. He's told the story a couple times now. He was at the airport waiting to get on a flight, and he was standing in like the vestibule or the United room or whatever it was, or he was just standing somewhere where he was quiet, and he called Jack, and he's like, Jack, we got to make a new game together. We have to make a Not This Lifetime tour themed game. and here's all the stuff that I want to see. And he started listing off all these different things, like all the concert footage and us on stage and the big features for me and for Axel and for Duff. And it's got to have all this stuff. And Jack's just like, well, that sounds pretty cool. / let me talk to the guys and see what we can work out. And then a couple weeks later, they got back together and said, this is definitely something we want to do. Let me introduce you to Eric Meunier, and he is going to be the game designer. And you guys, shoot it around and talk about your ideas and concepts and what you have going on. And so / came to that meeting, I'm not joking, with a portfolio of ideas. He had hand-drawn play fields. He had ideas for mechanisms. He had artwork concepts. He is a pinball designer,
Wow.
So that's why I'm credited, / and I are credited as co-designers on this game.
Okay.
I'm the one who did the math and, the mechanism design and making the layout and stuff work like that. But / was with me every step of the way. I'm not exaggerating. Literally every day during the design concepts of this game, / and I were texting back and forth, going through ideas, going through art concepts, and he was just all in all the time. I mean, I would text him like, hey, I have a question about, how we should do X, Y, and Z, and he would Facebook chat me, or sorry, not Facebook, he would like Zoom with me. And I'm like, oh, where are you at, dude? Because and he's just like, yeah, I'm in New Zealand. It's 4 a.m. And he's like laying in his hotel room, He's just like, yeah, we just finished up the show, but what do you got going? I'm like, sure, let's go into this, because time was just irrelevant to him when it came to talking pinball. He just wanted to be a part of it and wanted to be into it. So
That's something else too, and it shows the level of his intelligence. Obviously, you're saying you're doing the math portion of it, but for him to go to you and have these layouts, to have these designs, I don't know if you've experienced that necessarily with maybe other celebrities who've come to you for gaming, but I got to imagine in other fields, like if a celebrity is going into a specific field that they might not know about, if it's architecture or something, they're drawing circles, they're drawing, something that may not be professional standard. But it seems like he impressed you with this professional standard. Like if you were going to work with another professional designer,
yeah,
right? Like he was.
He absolutely did everything right. I mean, he's one of the few people, even in the pinball industry, who I felt comfortable explaining an idea to and felt like he understood it. Most people, when they come up to a new pinball machine that doesn't have any art on it,
Right.
it's called a whitewood. It's just a piece of plywood that has some lights and some ramps. And I would explain to him, like, here's the concept of what this is supposed to do, what that's supposed to do. This shot goes around. And he's one of the few people I've ever met who's just, Eric, I understand what you're doing, and I can see it, and I understand the vision. And then he'd provide feedback. Like, what if we did, this, and we had the, collecting the band member on this shot because it's a drumstick ramp, and that's where we should collect Frank. And he would just come at us with ideas that built off of what I did, and it was just a great relationship.
Just I'm always continuously impressed with Slash. Just like he's just not that. He's more than just a guitar player with the top hat. He's always doing something.
Absolutely.
Something else.
I did not expect him to be the way he was. Right? I mean, a superstar of his status, you just expect a certain personality. And I couldn't have been more wrong. Slash was the most down-to-earth, cool, understanding guy. When he came into the office, he's been here a couple times now, before COVID, like, I say that he introduced himself, but obviously he doesn't need to introduce himself.
Right.
But he shook hands with every single member of the team and like had a conversation one-on-one with every team member. Like, okay, what do you do? I'm a mechanical engineer. Okay, what does that actually mean? How are you involved in the game? And oh, you're a programmer. What part of the programming are you doing? And you're the artist. Oh, I love that. I love what you did with my likeness here and that sort of stuff. Like, just talked down to earth completely, had dinner with us all, and was just telling us stories about him with Miles Kennedy and, hanging out with GNR, getting back on the road and that sort of stuff. He was cool, down to earth, no level of arrogance, no level of superiority. He was just one of the guys, and it was fantastic.
what were the ideas that he approached you with that you were like, I hope this could work? You know, like if you can break down like what makes this other than the obvious, yeah, it's a Guns N' Roses. It's their second pinball machine, but they when the first one came out, what was it, 93?
94, I think is when it came out.
And so what makes this so different and above and beyond? Because again, what he really got me, like, it's an experience. It's not just you're playing a game. You're at a show, you're listening to music. So if anything, some people can just have it on the background and enjoy it, people all around. And then was every member involved?
Yes. Every member of the band was involved.
Okay. So we have to start from the big picture of what he wanted and then work our way down, if you could.
So he wanted to recreate the concert experience. He wanted to recreate the Not in This Lifetime tour and everything that goes into it. So that meant there's just so many aspects of it, but getting their stage, right? A stage with a big video screen behind it and their hexagonal light panels that are above their stage, and moving spotlights, gobos that light up the crowd. Getting the different aspects of what makes a concert fun are things that we integrate into the game. Like, we call them boosters. They're these 2-ball multi-ball modes. That there's one based around lights, there's one based around pyrotechnics, there's one based around the crowd, and there's one based around amplifiers. So getting all those things makes the show more entertaining, makes it more interesting to watch a show that has a great pyro and great lights and the crowd's into it and there's more noise. He really wanted to recreate the set list from the Not in This Lifetime tours. So we have 21 full-length songs that Slash picked out. I think he originally picked out like 28, but we had to cut it down a bit because we had a budget that we had to stick to on royalties and licensing of music and all that stuff. All the minutia that goes into actually creating it. So we picked 21 songs, and with him on board, I mean, so many of the songs were easier to get than they would have been if he wasn't involved. Right? One of the most fun stories is "Live and Let Die."
Okay.
Which is originally a McCartney song.
Right.
And we were just having a hell of a time trying to license it. Could not get anywhere with Sony, who owns the rights. We couldn't get anywhere with the James Bond people because it was originally written for a Bond movie. And we could get nowhere with McCartney. And we got on the horn of Slash and we're like, yeah, man, we're not going to be able to put Live and Let Die in the game. It's just not going to happen. We're not getting anywhere. And no joke, he's just like, Eric, let me call Paul. We'll work it out. And I'm just like, Sir Paul McCartney? He's like, yeah, dude, we'll work it out. No worries. And he came back, I don't know, like the next day. He's like, Eric, you got the song. I'm like, well, damn, dude, all right.
Why didn't you do that in the first place? But
well, he wasn't involved in the minutia of the negotiation,
you got to do it the right way, Yep. I understand that, but that's
yeah, it was just a wild experience. He wanted the 3 main GNR members, the Axel, him, and Duff, to have big features in the game, but he made sure that the current members of the band weren't left out by any means. He wanted them all involved, and they all were. Each of them did voice recording sessions with me. Cool. Each of them had, signed on their likenesses. We did hand drawing artwork of all of them. Their features. We had original sound bites and snips from him and from Duff and from Richard Fortis. They got in the studio and they all did stingers and riffs in all of the songs. So I am a music nerd. I played trumpet in collegiate marching band. I played saxophone my whole life. I know music. I'm into music. And I really wanted this game to sound perfect. And the way that you do that is you don't want things to clash, things be in the wrong key or at the wrong tempo. So when you're playing one of the 21 songs, when you hit a stand-up target or you hit a ramp or you hit a spinner, the noises and the sound effects that get made, I didn't just want them to be beep, boop, boop, boop. I didn't want them to be just generic sounds. So we got each of those guys to record sound effects for each of the songs in the right key at the right tempo. So that when you hit a ramp during Live and Let Die, it's like, right? And, again, for every song. So they put a lot of time and effort into it. Slash went over the top. He recorded new original music that was just him for these modes. And it was, me, I'm like, hey, Slash, here's the concept. It's a bunch of roadsters and you guys are monsters and you're racing through the desert. That's the mode. That's what you're playing during this. And he's like, okay, well, give me a second. Let me think about it. And I sent him the video so we could watch it, and it looped around. And he came back with just this sick riff. Like cool desert music, and he just ripped it out. And then same for the other modes. There's a mode where it's almost Mortal Kombat. The two bad guys from the X-rated Appetite for Destruction album. I'm sure you know the image I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
We got those two guys fighting each other.
Oh wow! Okay.
The monster and the dirty robot. They're fighting each other like Mortal Kombat, and so like going back and forth in the game. And Slash recorded new music for that, and then a couple other modes too in there. So.
Wow. I guess you're answering part of the question, where the fact that Slash recorded new music in a variety of different ways is exciting. Mm-hmm. But in that 94 pinball, they had a new song, I believe, they added to it. Mm-hmm. Anything like that discussed? I'll get yelled at by my listeners if I don't ask that. You could say no comment if you want.
No, I mean, it wasn't about, I have to make it clear that it wasn't Guns N' Roses that was making new music for the game. It was Slash personally making music, because it's, this was absolutely Slash's passion project. The rest of the band was involved, but like he was absolutely the guy who led the charge on everything.
So when the other members recorded, I think it's cool that how tedious it is, but they obviously were all into it to record different parts for when you hit the flipper. Sorry, if I'm not using. Is that do we still call it flipper? Is that the
flipper is what hits the ball around.
Okay, I'm just making sure. I'm trying to use some jargon to impress you. But when they were, and I like how you mentioned the Mortal Kombat style. But so would you have like Melissa Reese or Dizzy Reed record? How would they record their voices? Would it be like the old Mortal Kombat when that guy would come up and say "Toasty"? You know what I'm talking about?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay, so anything like that?
Absolutely. So we just put out a little video on our Facebook page earlier today, November 2nd, 2020, of Melissa came back for another recording session digitally last Friday. And so basically I was directing her on how to say the different things we wanted said in the game. So we had a script that was, a couple hundred short snippets. And like, okay, here's how it's going to be used in the game. I want you to say jackpot with like that kind of emphasis. She's like, all right, yeah, jackpot. And, and then there's the game in true GNR fashion has a family-friendly setting and an explicit setting.
Okay.
So there are, is your show family-friendly or is it explicit?
It's for the explicit family.
Okay. All right. So we have call-outs in there, that are pretty explicit. Getting Melissa Reese to yell like "super fucking jackpot, yeah!" It's just absolutely fantastic.
Beautiful.
And Frank Ferrer, the drummer, he was just such a rich voice, and you can just feel his personality come through it. When he was just like, "Thunder chucker, motherfucker, yeah!" And like when you collect Frank, and then Dizzy fucking Reed in the house, it was great. All the guys were just so into it.
Awesome.
And we say that the game is narrated by Duff and by Melissa, because those are the people who spent, probably 4 hours a piece in studio doing voice work for me for the game.
That's hard work.
It is.
Yeah,
absolutely. We were just chugging through it, and recording with Duff was hilarious because I sent him the script and there are honestly like 800 lines in the script. And I want you to say each one of them twice, so we get a little bit of inflection. What you don't want in a pinball machine is you don't want it to be stale. When you hit it, you hit something, you don't want to hear it say jackpot, 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 the same thing over and over again, right? Having variety in sound keeps the game feeling fresh. So sent Duff the script, and he got in the studio the next day. He's like, Eric, I read the script last night, didn't print one off. So if you could just read me the line, I'll read it back to you. We'll be good to go. And I'm like, all right, man, we're going to do this. So it kept getting more and more funny the longer we kept going, because I would get to a line that was explicit or raunchy or just, bonkers, right? And I would start to crack up before I would even read the line to him. That he would just be like, all right, this one's going to be a good one. I can tell by how much Eric's laughing. So getting him to say things. So when the game, when you hit the start button, but you don't plunge the ball, right? It's just sitting there. We have him and Slash and Melissa all like yelling at you for not paying attention. Like, hey, grandma, get off your ass and plunge the ball, right? But getting Duff to record quit pounding your pud and plunge the fucking ball was a very memorable experience.
Oh, amazing. And yeah. Your sense of humor matches like the GNR sense of humor. So
For sure, man.
Oh, I love it. These are like little things that I think just add so much more to it. As I said at the beginning, this isn't just, Guns N' Roses pinball sounds cool, but all these little things.
Right. Now, I have each of their phone numbers. I've talked to each of them multiple times. Getting these people who have so much passion for the brand and so much passion for the band that they're a part of, it was very rewarding, because I'm very passionate about what I do, and just being linked up with people who have a similar level of passion was fantastic.
Absolutely. Something I've always been curious about, just with pinball machines in general, and especially this one. How do you decide what goes on the screen and what goes in the actual game console itself? Because it's going to be really visual, just like a Guns N' Roses concert, and it may be hard to watch what's going on beneath you with the actual game because you want to look at the screen. So how do you make those decisions?
So from a game design perspective, the things on the playfield are what really impact how you want to play. Things that you need the player to be aware of are what should be focused on in the insert lights. Okay, inserts are little blinky lights through the wood. So the main core rules, things that you design really early on, are what get put into the playfield. Like in GNR, collecting the 7 band members, right? So there's an insert for each of the band members, and then the booster multi-balls, and their different aspects and how they're put together in the game. The video screen honestly shows what else we've come up with in the game, and we have to show ways of integrating all of that stuff that's on the playfield up there as well. But it really helps bring in other people too. So like when you're playing pinball, it's not super fun when people are like hovering right on your shoulders and like right against your hands. Having a huge 27-inch screen like we do in our game allows us to show everyone else in the room what's going on in your game and show off some of the really cool extra stuff we have. One of the things that might not be obvious from brochures and from still pictures is that there is another screen in the game that's basically dedicated for the player, which is down in the playfield area in what's called the back panel. And that's the area right above the stage in the back of the game. So we tend to put rules for the current mode that you're playing and timers and things like that you don't necessarily want to have to look up to see and then look back down. So advanced players aren't often looking at the big screen up above. They're keeping their eyes focused on what's going on. And we have to be able to show all the rules that are super important to that player with what we have just on the playfield.
Okay. Playfield. Now I'm never going to forget that term.
Playfield. Yep.
Again, I'm trying to use the jargon. The console, I'm a nerd, but not as I'm not the smart nerd. I think
there's definitely jargon to get used to with a pinball machine.
I think I'll be quoting Millhouse. I don't know if you're a big Simpsons guy. No, I'm not a nerd. Nerds are smart. So I don't know, maybe I'm a geek or something like that. How, I guess I have to ask, how involved was Axel with this?
Axel gave us approval to do a lot of stuff with his likeness, with his audio. But he even said, this is Slash's passion project. Refer to him for all the intimate
Okay.
details. But he signed off on his likeness. He wanted a couple tweaks on like his roadster look. Like he wanted red paint on the car instead of blue paint or whatever it was. But it was absolutely Slash's passion project.
Okay.
And it mostly went through Slash.
Right on. Right on. And, I alluded to it, and I hate saying it because obviously these games they're a destination game for a reason, I think. With arcades, with, like I said, I would go to bars with video games there. What's out there for, I guess, you've started to give out like prize packs for sale, and I think this is recent with some really cool things for the fans who want to take part in this, who perhaps can't, like me, can't afford a game inside their house. I mean, how many people can? So like, what's available, and also what would have been, I guess, the plan? Because this was in the works before COVID? Like, would these have been in a lot of in different bars or the high, the rock and roll? Would there have been one I don't want to say Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but
The answer is yes.
all right, all of that, all of the above.
So there are currently games out in bars, and it depends. COVID cases were dropping in the summer, and now things are going back up, and it sucks more and more. There are still bars and arcades that have bought this game and are putting them out on location. But what you alluded to, most of the people who buy our games are for private collections, private people who are buying games and putting them in their homes. So there is actually a game in New York, in Brooklyn. There's a bar called Jack Bar. And John is the owner. John Ehrlich is the owner of Jack Bar. So if you want to go check out the game,
I'm going to.
There. Okay.
I should have asked you beforehand, because that's something my girlfriend loves to do. We went to a restaurant called the Spaghetti Incident. So if there's so she knows if anywhere Guns N' Roses, I got to go. So Jack Bar. Okay.
Yep.
Was there, I guess it's just where certain, is there a plan? I'm assuming, would you want one in every state? Or I know I have a lot of international fans as well. I mean, I got to imagine if there was a destination, people would be going there,
For sure. Basically, if you're at all in touch with the pinball scene, or even just your local hipster hangouts, I mean, I know of specific games in San Francisco, in LA, in New York, and Chicago. There are games that are international already, but they're mostly in pinball places. Like we have a German distributor who has a game on his showroom floor, for example. There are more international games going out, and more domestic games going out. So we're building them at a decent clip every day, and more games are leaving the factory.
That's awesome. Despite all this, that really is awesome.
Yeah.
So congratulations. I mean, more than just on the product itself, the fact that you are defying the odds on this game that, it's a group game in this world. People are paranoid. You need a bottle of sanitizer on the console or the playing field or the game field. Playfields. Jesus. I'm trying to think what else. Again, there's so much I could ask you, but you've taken so much time out of your day, and I appreciate you kind of having it on in the background.
My head of production was just calling me, so I want to get out there and see what's.
I know. I saw you look down. I'm like, I don't want to keep this guy too much longer. As a fan and someone who put these songs in, what's your favorite Guns N' Roses song? I have to ask that.
Oh man, I think I'm gonna get blasted for saying this. I actually like This I Love from Chinese Democracy. I like the Chinese Democracy feels more like hard rock to me than classic rock, like the earlier albums. I put my foot in my mouth the very first time I talked to Slash, because he said something along the lines of, Eric, do you remember back in 86 or right when we dropped Appetite in 87 and such and such and this and this? And I was like, yeah, I wasn't born yet, man, so I don't know anything about it. And he's just like, oh, fuck, you made me feel so old. And I'm like, oh, no. So Appetite came out before I was born. And Use Your Illusion 1 and 2 came out when I was like 3 years old.
Okay.
So the Closer to Hard Rock Chinese Democracy album, I connected with a lot more.
You're going to win over a lot of my listeners because that's what I love. It's more than just GNR being my favorite band. The fact that it affects so many different generations. I was only 4 when Appetite came out. So I'm also on the younger side that I would have insulted Slash somehow too. So that's you're gonna win over if you haven't already with your intelligence in this this game you put out, which is amazing. And I hope I'm glad to see it going on the upswing because I can imagine. Like, okay, let me ask this: where could fans if they want it in their area and they don't have the means like I do? If they were to go to their local bar and say, how do we get this in here? Is there a place like where people can make requests? I think that there's like a concert website like that, like where you can, hey, do you want to see us in your area? Is there a way to solicit to have you guys come to their area?
If you go to your local bar that has pinball machines, like if you just walk into a mom and pop shop that doesn't have any games, you're probably not going to have a good luck. But if you walk into a place that has some games already, generally somewhere on the game, if it's not owned directly by the bar, there will be a business card or there will be a sticker that says, this is provided by GameWorks Inc. That's the person who's buying the actual game and then putting it in the bar. Generally, they do like a revenue split sort of thing.
Okay.
It's 50-50. So that should have contact numbers for your local operators who are actually the ones buying the games.
Cool. That's good information. And let me get you out on this, and this will also excite listeners. You are nice enough to possibly do giveaways. We're not going to do it on this podcast because I want everyone to see it at the same time, and I'll put it on social media when it's appropriate.
Sure.
Because let me just first say that you've started to announce merch. You can follow Jersey Jack Pinball on Instagram. And the first thing you guys did, you did a prize pack. And Karen Casablanca, she made her own pinball machine out of printouts of lithographs and cardboard, and she won. I could see that she just won a prize pack from you guys.
Yes. Yep.
Tell us about the prize pack. Tell us about the merch coming soon and what AFD show listeners will get, and we'll figure that out later.
Yeah, so she won a signed mini playfield. There is, here I go grab one quick, slightly off camera.
Sure. And I'm excited for this. I didn't know about this coming before the podcast. Look at that.
So this is a mini playfield.
How cool is that?
Complete with Slash's. I don't know if you can hear me or not.
I can.
Complete with Slash's.
The Gibson neck, and it's showing part of the playfield, the part of what's inside the actual pinball machine, and you can see through it, but it's glass and it's beautiful.
Right. So this is the
all different colors.
This is the stage mini playfield. So Karen received one of these that was signed by everyone on the design team.
Oh, so it's wood with a glass top.
It's wood with these are holes. This is what the ball actually goes through and what the flipper goes through, and wires and cables and all that stuff. Those
cutouts, right?
Yep. And then what you see here, these are called the inserts. This is where the lights actually flash through, indicating, shoot here and shoot here, etc. So
it's an actual plate you take out of the playfield.
Yep.
Awesome. So cool.
And she got, I think, a T-shirt and some other poster. We got a bunch of signed posters from Slash of him with the games. I don't know if one of those is included or not, but they're potential prizes. And then we also have what's called a translite, which is what the back of the game looks like with our display, and what happens during a game is what's shown on the display. So
it's a printout of. I'm trying to. I'm being in awe at the same time, realizing some people listening to this just on a podcast. So I'm trying to, I don't even know how you describe that of what you would see in the background, but it's a printout. Yeah, it's like if I was going to do a screenshot of.
Yes, if you're going to take a picture of someone playing the game, this is what might be what the back of the game would look like.
And it has all the band members around it, and it's just another beautiful. Wow! When you said prize pack, I'm like, oh, maybe some balloons, T-shirt. No, this is a prize, motherfucker, packed.
We've got lots of cool stuff.
So we're gonna, I guess, off air, we'll discuss what giveaways we'll do through the podcast, or is there anything specific, or can we leave them with a teaser? I guess if you're listening to this episode, or save it. We could have discussed this. This is what usually our promotions department is for, but I'm a one-man band. So we'll have giveaway. We'll put it like this: we'll have giveaways, and just follow Appetite for Distortion on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and we'll figure out a way how to give away some of this cool stuff. Eric, I can't thank you enough for your time. This wasn't even like an interview. This was more of just like me geeking out with you and figuring out, just being in awe and like thinking like I've done a lot with my life, but man, you've had a cool one, and I hope
it is super fun, man. It's a super fun thing. It's my passion. I live and breathe it. I've got 10 games in my house. I met so many awesome people through doing what I do, and it's just one of those things that it's fun. It's just fun to be in and fun to do, and people, most people will ask, oh, they still make those, when I tell them that I'm a pinball designer. But then once they get into it and they see like they're a lot different than they used to be, a lot more to do.
I got one of those, and it's like there's clearly a demand for it, and that's why I had to really specify that there's still destination like places, and go to bars and restaurants and all these hip places. They're there on top of the collectors, so there still is, and arcades are still out there, as much as anything could be out there in the world of COVID.
Right.
So last question I guess I'll ask is, other than Slash, have you met anyone that we might be surprised, like who's on like a big name that's really got into pinball, who goes to these conventions? Have you met any other rock stars or celebrities through your?
Yeah. I was playing our Hobbit pinball machine at one of these trade shows, one of these pinball shows, and I was in a wizard mode, which is what you get into when you basically kick the game's ass and you're getting to the end of it, right? So I've got 5 balls going on the play field at the same time and trapping up and shooting jackpots. And Ed Robertson from the Bare Naked Ladies,
the
lead singer from the Bare Naked Ladies, jumps on my back and like, hey Eric, is this distracting at all to you as you're playing a wizard mode? Because we hung out a bunch of times. He's a really cool guy. He's really into pinball, and he was just like yanking my chain. So it was fun. I was playing pinball with Ed Robertson on my back during a wizard mode. There's just a bunch of people who are really into pinball. There's Todd McCulloch is a former NBA forward. So hanging out with him is always fun because he's literally 2 feet taller than me. And so like when we're hanging out, yeah, Todd, that's cool. Can you sit down and we can almost be at eye level, please, so we can talk? Yeah, it's a lot of fun thing. It really equalizes a lot of people, and they got fun things to talk about.
Awesome, Eric. Thank you again for your time and all your insight into this. What's the name of that bar again in Brooklyn? I mean, I could ask you this later, but
Jack Bar.
Jack Bar. I'm going there, and I'm going to report on it. That's what I'm going to do.
Right.
With my Guns N' Roses mask, which I'll hold up.
There you go.
Appetite for vaccination.
There you go.
Amazon, they're not sponsors. I don't know why I'm advertising it. So, Eric, thank you so much, and I hope we get to do this again.
Thank you, man. Yeah, me too.
So that does it for this episode of Appetite for Distortion. Remember, follow on social media to find out how we're going to do this Jersey Jack Pinball giveaway that we're so gracious to be able to do through the podcast, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And when will you see the next episodes, though? Who are we going to talk to? Well, in the words of Axl Rose concerning Chinese democracy, Eric's his favorite album. I don't know if soon is the word. Oh, no, I'm messing it up. He says it. You'll see it. I don't know if soon is the word. There you go.